Number 1.
Cephas was last seen in Port Norris, New Jersey at 12 p.m. on May 4, 1984. She lived with her family on Dragston Road near North Avenue and was last seen riding her bicycle away from the residence. The bike is described as a pink and white 20-inch Huffy Girls model with a white banana seat, the image of flowers on the frame, and the initials KC on the neck near the handlebars. Cephas has never been heard from again. She left her purse, cigarettes and watch behind at home, and her bike has never been recovered. When Cephas left home, she told her sister she was going to visit her former boyfriend, an older man who lived nearby. Cephas's sisters stated this man was the father of her unborn baby and that he didn't want to take responsibility for the child. They believe he was involved in Cephas's disappearance. The man refused to cooperate with the police investigation after Cephas vanished. When he was interviewed by the Atlantic City Press in 1998, he said he had never dated her and was not the father of her baby, but only knew her as a neighbor. Prior to her disappearance, Cephas had said she was thinking of running away from home, but her family doesn't believe she would have left without saying where she was going. She had never lived outside her neighborhood prior to her disappearance. Foul play is suspected in her case, which remains unsolved.
Number 2.
Chambrone was last seen in Ocean Township, New Jersey on August 1, 1980. She lived with her husband in the 1200 block of Logan Road. They got into an argument and Chambrone left at 6:30 p.m. After departing her residence, she stopped at a friend's home and watched television for a while. She then left, telling her friend she planned to hitchhike to Asbury Park, New Jersey. Chambrone has never been heard from again. She left her dog and all her personal belongings behind at home, including her clothes, purse and money. Chambrone's husband reported his wife missing 18 days later. He waited because it wasn't uncharacteristic of her to drop out of sight for a few days at a time without telling anyone. He and Chambrone were having severe marital problems in 1980, in part due to financial issues. In 1985, William John Deves Jr. confessed to killing Chambrone. He had murdered another woman, Sylvia Murphy, in 1984. A photo of Deves is posted with this case summary. He had exhibited severe behavioral problems and symptoms of mental illness from early childhood and has an extensive criminal record dating back to his mid-teens, mostly for violent offenses. Deves stated he met Chambrone in an Asbury Park bar and drove her to Neptune, New Jersey. After she rejected his sexual advances, he stopped the car, grabbed Chambrone by the feet, and threw her from a bridge over a stream along Old Corliss Avenue in Neptune, New Jersey. Afterwards, he went down to the embankment and pushed her body out into deeper water. Police searched the stream with divers but found nothing. The stream empties into the Shark River, which leads to the ocean. Deves was convicted of Murphy's murder at trial, and in 1985 he pleaded guilty to Chambrone's murder. He was sentenced to a combined minimum term of 50 years in prison for both cases and will not be eligible for parole until he is 82 years old. Foul play is suspected in Chambrone's case due to the circumstances involved. Investigators don't believe her body can be recovered.
Number 3.
Davaris was last seen by a relative on July 6, 2005 in Secaucus, New Jersey. He told his parents he was going to the Jersey Shore, but instead he bought a one-way plane ticket to Ireland, arriving in Dublin on July 8. He had been to Ireland several times before and has Irish relatives. Davaris was sighted at a pub in Inna, County Clare after his arrival in Ireland. On July 12, a man found his rucksack washed up onshore at Quilty Beach in County Clare. His cellular phone, clothing, passport and other identification were inside the bag, but there was no sign of him. The person who found the bag took it home, and his wife put the SIM card in her own phone. When Davaris's parents called the number 2 days later, she answered on her phone, and it was only then that they realized he'd gone to Ireland. After his disappearance, Davaris's rental car was found parked at the cliffs of Moher. His loved ones believe he took his own life there. Although Davaris had no debts, no problems with substance abuse, and no history of depression, he had lost his job several months before he went missing and had become moody and withdrawn. He was declared legally dead in May 2016. Police in Ramsey, New Jersey, and in Ireland are investigating Davaris's disappearance.
Number 4.
Margaret was last seen in Burlington, New Jersey on June 24, 1974. She was planning to go to High and West Broad Streets in Mount Holly, New Jersey, to have an interview with a man who called himself John Marshall. Margaret's younger sister accompanied her to the bus stop and saw her get on. Witnesses reported seeing her near Mill and High Streets after she got off the bus in Mount Holly, but she has never been heard from again. Margaret had advertised for a babysitting job, and Marshall responded to the ad on June 19. He told her he needed a babysitter for the following weekend, but he postponed meeting her several times. Finally, he said he would meet her in a red Volkswagen. He gave Margaret a telephone number to reach him. The number was traced to a public phone booth at a supermarket in Lumberton, New Jersey. In the hours after Margaret was reported missing, police started recording all phone calls placed to her residence. Once was from a man who demanded $10,000 for Margaret's safe return. He stated, "$10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping." This caller has never been identified. Margaret has never been heard from again, and John Marshall has never been identified. Several other parents in the area complained that someone had attempted to lure their daughters with fake job offers. A suspect's 1976 confession to involvement in her disappearance was widely publicized but turned out to be a hoax. Margaret took piano lessons in 1974, and she liked to ride horses. She graduated from St. Paul's Grammar School in Burlington 2 weeks before she vanished. Her parents are now deceased, but her siblings are still alive, and some still live in the Burlington area. Her case remains unsolved.
Number 5.
Green and his friend, Raheem Martin, planned to cash a check from a civil lawsuit in Newark, New Jersey, on January 19, 2001. The last time they were seen was on a surveillance camera at Independence Community Bank at Broad and Academy Streets. Green appeared to be nervous and kept glancing towards the door. Martin cashed the check, which was for over $8,000. He had also been issued a second check for $4,000, but it was never cashed. Martin and Green left the bank and went next door to the Prudential building on Broad Street, where Martin had once worked as a guard for a private security firm. He called his uncle from a payphone in the lobby, and they talked briefly. The uncle worked at the building, but Martin and Green left without actually seeing him. They have never been heard from again. Neither Martin nor Green had driver's licenses at the time they disappeared. They relied on other people to give them rides. They were both close to their families, and it is uncharacteristic of them to leave without warning. Green has not used his credit card since his disappearance and left his cellular phone behind. He has a juvenile criminal record. He was sentenced to probation for car theft but was sent to a juvenile detention center after he dropped out of high school, a violation of his probation. He did not re-offend. Martin had no criminal record. Because of the large amount of money they were carrying, investigators theorized Green and Martin had been robbed and murdered. The day after Green and Martin were reported missing, a man's body was found in a burned house in Newark. He had been murdered and the house intentionally set on fire. The victim was identified as Martin in August 2010, but there was no sign of Green. Foul play is suspected in his case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 6.
Grullon was last seen at approximately 5 a.m. on April 13, 2004, at his residence in the vicinity of 60th Street and Hudson Avenue in West New York, New Jersey. His mother went to visit him that morning and found the front door open and Grullon gone. He has never been heard from again. Grullon left behind all his belongings, including his keys, clothes, toothbrush and passport, and there's been no indication that he left the country after he went missing. He was fired from his job at the West New York Department of Public Works a few weeks before he disappeared and planned to go to the unemployment office on April 13 after making a court appearance relating to a child support issue. His telephone had been disconnected because he couldn't pay the bill. Later in 2004, his family got a call from someone they didn't know who said Grullon was in the hospital. Police checked area hospitals, but Grullon wasn't a patient in any of them or in any nearby rehabilitation centers. Little evidence is available in Grullon's disappearance. His family fears for his safety.
Number 7.
Haddican-McEnroe was last seen at approximately 1:30 p.m. on October 10, 2006 at a residence near the vicinity of Witchwood Way and Roundtop Road in Warren Township, New Jersey. Her husband left the residence on an errand. When he returned 2 hours later, his wife was gone, and the couple's infant was home alone. Haddican-McEnroe has never been heard from again. Haddican-McEnroe may have been carrying additional clothing and identification under her birth name, Sherwood Haley, in a black duffel bag at the time of her disappearance. Her husband stated $11,000 in cash disappeared from her home at the same time she did, and she may have taken the money with her. She is known to have been carrying one credit card, but there has been no activity on the account. There has also been no activity on her bank account. Haddican-McEnroe left behind her vehicle and her cellular phone. She has left home for short periods of time in the past, and her husband did not report her as a missing person for 2 days as a result. She has never been gone this long before, however. One of Haddican-McEnroe's army t-shirts was found on Dock Watch Hollow Road, about a mile from her home, on Thanksgiving Day in 2006, 6 weeks after her disappearance. It was sent to a laboratory for analysis, but the testing did not turn up anything useful. The shirt was not weathered, indicating it had not been exposed to the elements for very long. Haddican-McEnroe was employed as a firefighter with the Mount Bethel Fire Company at the time of her disappearance. Her husband is also a firefighter. She is described as a tough, physically strong woman. She played sports and trained in boxing as a teenager and enlisted in the Army in 2001, completing basic training at Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina. She worked as a tank mechanic during her military service and was discharged early in 2004 for medical reasons. She has 3 children, 2 by her husband and 1 by a previous relationship. Haddican-McEnroe was adopted as a baby, but she made contact with her birth mother in 1998 and they enjoyed a close relationship. Authorities stated they had little evidence to indicate Haddican-McEnroe's fate and were not discounting any possibilities. Her co-workers and family members stated she was behaving normally prior to her disappearance. Haddican-McEnroe's case remains unsolved.